So have you ever heard of the Seinfeld strategy? So there's this guy, Brad Isaac, young up-and-coming comedian. He's backstage with Jerry Seinfeld, and he asked him, how did you get so good? Now, the information that Jerry gave Isaac wasn't really revolutionary. It was simply to write better jokes. And the way that you wrote better jokes is you wrote jokes every single day. But there was a second part to this story. Jerry said, go out and get a calendar, put it on your wall, and every day that you do this, put a big red X on that day. And after a few days, you're going to have a chain. You're going to have a streak. Do not break the streak. Personally, what I love about this tactic is how simple it is. And it works. I mean, think about it. If you got a streak going of 60 days that you've worked out every single day, and yes, it's 10 o'clock at night, and you for some reason weren't able to work out today, what are you going to do? You're going to hit that ground. You're going to find a way to get a workout in so you can maintain the streak. Now, individually, each of these days, each of these reps, each of these times that you keep the streak going, they don't really matter that much. But if you just get 1% better each day, guess what? You are going to be 37 times better at the end of the year. Now, having said all that, is the Seinfeld strategy the #1 way to make sure you keep your New Year's resolutions? I'm going to argue no. I mean, it's good. It's a solid tip, but there's something more fundamental I think you need to have if you want to make sure your New Year's resolutions stick. What am I talking about? Gents, find out in today's video. All right, so if it's not maintaining the chain, maybe it's accountability. And this one is super powerful. Actually having a workout buddy you're going to meet at the gym, having somebody at work that holds you accountable to self-development, picking up those new skills that are going to pay the bills. Another option, especially if you're in sales, you're a solo entrepreneur, is finding an assistant. So many times we think we're effective, and you bring in an assistant and you hand off all these things you shouldn't be doing, the lower value work that she can or he can knock through, but also you find that when someone is around you, you are more productive. Gents, it doesn't matter who it is, as long as it motivates you to take action. So does that mean accountability is the #1 rule to make sure you keep your New Year's resolutions? Unfortunately not. It's solid, it's powerful. So maybe it's something simpler, something as simple as, I don't know, changing out the tool. I know for me at night, I was scrolling and I kept my phone upstairs because it's my alarm clock, right? The problem is I'm scrolling for an hour to 2 hours before going to sleep and not sleeping well. So all of a sudden I brought an actual alarm clock into my room and we created a rule that phones need to stay downstairs past 8 o'clock at night. Now notice what I did. I simply changed out the tool. The phone was a distraction, but it also had the useful tool of the alarm clock. But by bringing in a physical alarm clock, all of a sudden I wasn't reliant on my phone and that could actually stay down. So the excuse of having it upstairs with me didn't stand. Another example where you can make a quick switch and it'll have a huge impact on your 2023 being your best year ever. Guys, get rid of that old school toothbrush and step into the 21st century. I'm talking about the Smart Clean Sonic toothbrush from Ollie. Now, gents, I've been talking about the Smart Clean Sonic toothbrush for coming in on 5 years because about 5 years ago, I had first-stage gum disease. This toothbrush makes it easy to properly brush your teeth and remove all of that plaque before it builds up and all of a sudden you're dealing with issues. And let's talk about the heads that come with the Smart Clean Sonic toothbrush. When you first buy it, you get 3 different types. Depends on which one you find. I would try the different ones. What I love about these heads is that they last really long. Ollie has it set up so you can set up a subscription, and when you set up the subscription, actually it covers your toothbrush for a lifetime warranty. Now with this newest design, notice the different settings. So depending on which one you go for, you can actually just clean your teeth, you can whiten your teeth, you can polish your teeth, you can massage your teeth. And if you've got sensitive teeth, I love that they've got a setting. I know for my wife, she just really did not like electric toothbrushes. This one she can stand. This one actually works well for her because it's designed for people with sensitive teeth. Oh, and a small but important detail, I love how the charging station is tiny. It doesn't really take up any real estate in your bathroom. Now, gents, to make things simple today, I'm going to be linking to Ollie's complete oral care box down in the description of today's video with the best deal on the web. Your first box includes a Smart Clean Sonic toothbrush, 2 fresh mint toothpastes, string floss, and floss picks. Gents, like I said, for 5 years, I've been using the Smart Clean Sonic toothbrush. I know the founder. I know what these guys stand for. Great products, great service, and I love that they've got this subscription box. It makes it so simple for you to have amazing looking teeth. Now, tied to that last tip, tools, let's talk about a tool in particular, journals. So I wanted to give this one its own point, and I do think it's one of the most powerful ways to be able to stay on your New Year's goals is to actually write things down, what you're accomplishing day by day. Very powerful. But here's the thing about journaling is you're going to do it imperfectly. There were entire days I skipped, days that I just, didn't even finish filling it out. That's not the point. Imperfect journaling is better than not journaling at all. And I know throughout my life, I've journaled, I've started, I've stopped. This was back in, early 2000, the late 1990s. I've got these journals. And I show you those old journals, not because I've been journaling since then, but because I took a 10-year break, a hiatus. I stopped and then I started again and I stopped. It's not about being perfect. It's about actually starting and occasionally doing it. That is the step. Maybe it's not perfect, but it's a step in the right direction. And I also make it easy on myself. Notice I've got that same journal in yellow. I've got it in black. I've got a blue one lying around back over at my house. I make it simple to be able to grab a journal, grab a pen or a pencil, whatever it is, and just to start writing and documenting, writing down what's going through my head, what I want to accomplish, what is, really what am I going to accomplish to stay on track for my goals. Now, having said that, gents, journaling is a very powerful technique for keeping your New Year's resolutions. But is it number one? Nah, there's other ones. Now, this next tip to keeping your New Year's resolutions is definitely not number one, but it's super powerful and I want to mention it. And that is automate measurement. I know for me, I wear an Oura ring. I've got a fit tracker. I've got an Apple Watch. A lot of these things, whenever I go on a run, I'm tracking it. I'm mapping it. Point being is because I'm measuring it, I can actually see progress or lack of progress. I can see what's going on, and therefore I can take steps to fix, to improve, to change things up. Because if you aren't measuring, maybe your goal is to save up $1,000 this year, $10,000, be able to have enough money for a down payment on your dream home. If that's your goal, then you need to measure. You need to have some way of automating it, because if you're depending on your willpower, on you every day remembering it, that's going to last maybe a few weeks, maybe a few months, but you're eventually going to fall off. But if you automate it, I know Personal Capital, there's all these different types of just ways you can actually connect them to your bank account and you can actually see what's going on. In fact, a lot of banks, they actually have services. If you go talk to somebody, or they'll find a way, basically they want to keep your business if they're a good bank, and they may even have a way to be able to show you where you're spending so that you can go in there. You can cut expenses. You can maybe figure out ways to bring in a little bit extra money so that you can start heading towards and you can see progress towards your goal, because that is one of the most powerful things whenever you're trying to make change, is to see those steps of progress. Even if it's not much, just one step in the right direction, $10 towards that goal can make a huge difference in your mindset, because you know that you're just a bit closer versus slipping farther away. So we're talking about plans, talking about New Year's resolutions. Well, a detailed plan, that would actually be the number one way to make sure that you get things done this year, right? Detailed plans are very important. In fact, there's a number of studies that show if you actually go through and break things out in detail, you're more likely to accomplish it. Because there's one thing to say, hey, I'm going to save up $10,000, or I'm going to go out there and I'm going to learn how to ride a bike. I'm going to have my first 100-mile bike ride. You can say that, but first you're going to have to accomplish that first mile. First, you need to get a bike. First, you need to understand the mechanics of riding a long distance bike. There's a lot that goes into that. And so you got to break things into tiny steps, because it's a lot easier to do something that's only going to take 1 hour versus something that's going to take 100 hours. Now, at some point, you may have heard somebody say SMART goals. It's an acronym. It stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. Basically, for your resolution, if you break it into a SMART goal, you're going to be able to clearly define where you're going and you're more likely to get there. So when they say specific, what they're saying is the goal should be well defined. When they say measurable, they mean that a goal should be trackable. For it to be attainable, it shouldn't be some dream. This should be something that, yes, is ambitious, but it's something that you can accomplish. By relevant, it actually has to be something that you truly desire, not somebody else's dream or their goal. And by time bound, you've got to have a specific date. You've got to have a deadline. So if your New Year's resolution is to be in the best shape of your life, that's pretty ambiguous. On the other hand, if you say, you know what, I am going to change my BMI to this. I'm not sure what you want to get it to, but if you say, okay, I'm going to lose 25 pounds of fat, I'm going to gain 20 pounds of muscle, I'm going to do it before this specific date, I don't know, maybe June 15th, 2023. So you're giving yourself half a year. Notice how with those details, it's now measurable. This is attainable because right now your weight's about, 225. So yeah, losing 25 pounds, but maybe getting 20 back in muscle is very doable. You've been there before. And it's also something that's relevant. It's important to you. And finally, time bound. So instead of saying in 1 year, you're going to say, no, I'm going to have this done by September 1st, 2023. And then going backwards, you can even break out, hey, what you expect to have on the way. Now, SMART goals are awesome. And some of you guys are saying, Antonio, that's got to be the one. And the answer is no. And the reason being is SMART goals and output goals, they have a fatal flaw. And that is you don't have full control over the output. Instead, I want you to be measuring the input. And this is a very strong way. It's not the number one way to be able to make sure you get your New Year's resolutions and you stick with them, but it's a very powerful tool that I use, and that is I measure the input, and it's more important to me than the output. The output, let's take it in sales. Sales, we're measuring for performance. A lot of you guys work in sales, and you're measured for basically how much money you bring in. But there's a lot of things that have to go into the system, basically finding the leads, nurturing the leads, following up with the leads. And if you are doing all of these things and you trust in the system and you've got percentages, then you know that you're in general going to get a certain output. Isn't always accurate. Sometimes it's below, sometimes it's above. But if you've got a good system, then you can trust the leads, and that's what you really want to measure. So I know for creating videos here on YouTube, I can't control how many views. I can't control what the income is for the channel, but what I can control is how many videos we put out every week. I can't control scripting. I can't control doing research. I can't control showing up and filming these videos. These are all lead indicators. And you've got, the gym is another perfect example. You can't guarantee at the end of this year, you're going to be benching 200 pounds, squatting 400. You could have an injury and you just may not be able to get up that lift. But what you can do is say, you know what, every morning I'm going to be at the gym at 6 a.m. 3 times a week. I'm going to be meeting with my workout buddy, and we're going to be putting in this particular workout. You can measure that, and that is the victory right there. What you can't control is what you put in. You can't always control what goes out. So if you tie your happiness to what goes out, you're going to be in for sometimes, I think, a lot of disappointment versus tying your satisfaction and knowing that you put in your best. That's why I love focusing on lead indicators. Now, this next rule to keeping your New Year's resolutions is super powerful. I read about it in a book probably 15 years ago, and it talked about the elephant and the rider. And if you can imagine, your body and your impulses are the elephant, and the rider is your brain. Now, the rider is much smaller than the elephant, and the elephant will go off in different directions unless you've actually cleared a path in which the elephant has to follow. And what does this mean for you? How can you apply this? Well, let's say that you want to start dressing better. You want to improve your style. Well, guess what? You need to have your clothing laid out the night before, because if it's more difficult to dress sharp than it is to dress casually, you're going to dress casually because you're going to wake up late, you're going to be in a hurry, and you're just going to grab what's available. But if all of your nice clothing is laid out on a valet, your shoes are shined, everything is looking good, it's going to be easier to dress sharp than to try going through your closet, find the casual clothing that you've got hidden in the back. The same thing applies to the gym. If you find that it's difficult to go to the gym, then make sure every morning you've got your gym clothes laid out, you've got your gym bag, everything found. You're not having to rummage through the dark at 6 a.m. You maybe auto set that temperature so it warms up at 5 a.m. and you can jump out of bed. It's nice and toasty. Whatever is holding you back, find a way to adjust the path so that elephant wants to stay on it versus wanting to go off, because it's very difficult. But if you, again, set the system in a way, you can follow it and becomes much easier. Now, this next one is an accountability rehash, but I got to share it, and that is commit to your kids. So I told my kids I will make them breakfast in the morning. I will wake them up. So guess what? I can't sleep in. And I started having an issue with just going to bed later, not being able to, just being lazy in the morning. Comfortable, I got a beautiful woman in the bed with me, and we've had the baby, and she's been keeping me up at night. But when I committed to my daughters to waking them up at 6:15 and having breakfast for them on the table by 6:45, guess what? Because I told my kids that I'm going to do this, I'm not going to let them down. So guess what? I am up. I don't want to be, but I would just pop in the shower just to simply wake up. And all of a sudden, I'm making things happen. Guys, getting back to that accountability one, it can be super powerful, especially when you are being held accountable by somebody that you love or you respect, and you do not want to let them down. Now, this next tip, I know a lot of you night owls are going to disagree with me on, and that is to make first things first. And if you really want to make a New Year's resolution stick, you need to get it done at 6 a.m. at the latest. If you wait till 7 a.m., 8 a.m., your day is already going out. Okay, maybe there are exceptions to this rule, but I find that for me, by 7 a.m., the kids are up, fires are happening, the wife is asking for, oh my goodness, we don't have bread. So we need peanut butter. There's no milk. Guess who's running to the store? The thing is, I find that there is nobody screaming for my attention at 5 a.m. And on and off, I've had different relationships. I made a whole video about how I stopped waking up at 5 a.m. But I've started again. And I find that just that early time in the morning, you can make first things first, and it's amazing what you can accomplish. Now, I did have a dilemma because I found my Mondays, though, I was losing with my company because I had full of meetings. And everyone in my company is on advanced time zones. They're in Ukraine, they're in the Philippines, they're over in the Czech Republic, over in Kenya. People are just ahead of me in time. So I would have my 8 a.m.s to my 10 a.m. reserved on Mondays for meeting with my team. But I wanted to film. I wanted to work on the most important things in my business. Not that meeting with my team isn't important, but it's not the most important scalable thing I need to be doing. So what did I do? I actually shift to one meeting a week, and I moved it over to Tuesdays. I know a lot of you guys are in companies that maybe you can adjust the policy, but maybe you can find a way to be creative so that you can have your Monday mornings to focus in on your most important task at work. Because if you don't make first things first, it seems like other things are going to jump in, are going to take precedence, and that leads to just simply them falling off and you not getting done what you want to accomplish. Now, this next tip to keep your resolutions is definitely not number one, and I think some of you guys are going to disagree with it, but it is to lower your standards. And hear me out. Okay, so for me, going to the gym, just simply putting my foot into the gym, counts. It's not about a particular workout. It's not, being able to lift a set amount. It's just simply putting my foot in the gym. And that's what I love about lowering the standards, is just to get started. It's not about taking great care of your teeth. It's simply flossing one tooth. Because guess what? If you floss one tooth, you're going to floss the rest of them, most likely. There will maybe be a night that you're just tired as heck, and you will accomplish mission just by flossing one tooth and go right to bed. But 99% of the time, I know for me, going to the gym, there's only been one time in this last year that I wasn't feeling great, that I put my foot in the gym and I turned around and left. Other times, it's like I simply follow through. And that's what I mean by lowering your standard. Maybe you want to save $5,000 by the end of this year to be able to put a down, deposit on, whether it be a new car or whatever it is you're going for, maybe an emergency fund. Well, don't think, okay, you got to save an equal amount throughout the year. Instead, give yourself a variable amount that you're going to save every single month, $100 to maybe $500 every single month, maybe even a little bit more. That first month, January, doing pretty good, $300. February is pretty tight, $100. March is pretty tight, $100. April, you get your tax return back. Boom. You go ahead and drop $700 or $800. You even blow past it to make up for lost ground. Point being is you're still on path. You've lowered your standard. You've added that variable, but you are still taking steps in the right direction. All right, gentlemen, so you ready for it? The number one rule to make sure that you keep your New Year's resolutions, focus in on one thing. That's it, gentlemen. Focus on one. It sounds simple, but it is so difficult when you've got so many distractions, so many things screaming. I've talked about the priority matrix, being able to identify not only what is important, but what is urgent. And you're going to have things screaming at you that are very urgent, but they're not that important. And these are the most dangerous things. I know for me in my business, what I did this last year is I listed out everything that we wanted to accomplish, everything that needed to be done. There were like 100 things on that list that all were important or seemed important, were screaming at me. And then we put them in order of really what's going to have impact. And there were, 20. And then of that 20, guess what? Pareto principle, right? The 20% that yields you the 80%. But I've talked about the deep Pareto principle, the 20% of the 20% that yields you 64%. This year, and I would love to hear from you guys down in the comments below, what is the one thing that if you focus in on it, everything else is going to fall. Everything else is going to go right down the right path. I know for me, it's about managing energy, AKA my health. As you get older, as you get more, deeper into your business, you realize, hey, I know a lot of things. I definitely don't necessarily need as much in skills, but I need to be fully present. I need to be able to give my full energy. I need to be devoted, and I need to make sure I'm present. And the only way I can do that is to make sure I'm taking care of my body, because I'm not doing, I know I've talked about it throughout this video, going to the gym and stuff, but I haven't been as consistent. I haven't always been eating the right foods. So that right there, the right food going into my body and taking care of this one body I have, my most important thing this year. But I would love to hear from you down in the comments, and put it in order. Maybe you've got 5 things, but make sure that you've got, and you know what your number one thing is, because that right there, if you get that accomplished, everything else is going to start to fall into place. All right, gentlemen, so what video to watch next? How about the number 1 rule to looking stylish? If you enjoyed this video, you are going to love this one, and you're going to look more stylish by the end of it, because you'll hopefully follow the tips. I break it out. I make it easy. Gentlemen, check it out. Solid video. Boom, right here.